Shame, addiction, and recovery. A lot of times, shame has a huge role in addiction itself. Any of those of you that have been in rehab know that. Um, One of the biggest things that they work on in rehabilitation is not the addiction itself, but what caused the addiction. For a lot of us, we use drugs and alcohol to escape the shame or a traumatic event or something in our life. For me, it was alcohol. And I used it because it shut off my overactive thoughts. I mean, my overactive self doubt, my overactive self loathing. I pretty much hated myself, just for various reasons. And so for me, that's what shame led me into, and alcohol was my escape because it shut all that off. And when you get into recovery, the thing about it is now you have a new set of shame to deal with. So, and we're going to talk about that today. Hi, I'm Sean. This is Hope and Encouragement. And I know this is probably not your first time here, but if it is, welcome. Try to talk about things that help us through our addiction and recovery and through Scripture. So I want to give you a couple of verses here that is about shame, about low self-esteem, actually, on when it comes to ourselves. I'm going to start off with the Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 7. You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you. That is God talking to us straight away. It doesn't matter what our past was. It doesn't matter what drugs we used. It doesn't matter how many times we were high or how many times we were drunk, or it doesn't matter the choices that we have made in the past. Yes, those choices affect our present, but we have to deal with them right here, right now, in the present, so that we can have a much better future. And it's all about the choices that we're making and how we need to overcome it. Psalm 139:14. Now, in this is David talking to God. And he says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And if you remember, David was a little scrawny grunt of a guy when he was anointed by Samuel to become king. And the Holy Spirit was put upon him as a child, and he carried that with him for the rest of his life. Let me read this here to you. This is really important. This is 1 Samuel 6, verse 7. I'm going to give you a little backstory on this. God had sent Samuel to look for David. Samuel didn't know who he was looking for. God just told him to go to the house of Jesse. There he would find the one he was going to anoint king, and he would tell him. So the first one that Samuel comes across with Jesse the father is Eliab. And evidently Eliab was this really tall, really strong, guy. And when Samuel looked upon Eliab, Samuel was like, oh, surely this is the next king of Israel. And this is what God says. He said, but the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance, or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh at the heart. So God knows your heart. God knows you're trying. God knows you're trying to get through this. And here in a little teaching section from this version of the King James Bible, because this is a study Bible, it says, our Creator knows His human creatures intimately, and He is able to discern our thoughts and purposes before we ourselves are aware of them. He always looks beyond appearance and stature to the heart. And that is so important, because how many of us have this heart that, man, we are trying our best. We're trying to do good. Now, I did a video earlier this year. I don't remember what it was. I'll put it out on the end screen of this video, called "Shame in Our Mental Health," and in it I talk about this article that was done by Lori Shannon, and she goes over the 5 impacts of shame, and then the 5 ways out of shame. And the 5 ways out are so important to do. They are just so important to do to shame. But we need to look at how shame really affects our lives, not just in addiction, but more importantly, when we're getting out of addiction, how we still have to deal with that shame. You know, the shame and the pain and the trauma and whatever that led us into addiction, we have to get out of that. You know, and a lot of times, if you were in a short-term program, you didn't have a lot of time to process that information. Okay, you didn't have a lot of time to process that within yourself, and you have to process that within yourself, because if you don't, you're going right back down the same road that led you into addiction. Okay, and it's just going to derail your recovery. So let's talk about the 5 impacts of shame first, and then we'll hit the 5 ways out of it. We'll do these real quick for you. Number 1, people who live with shame often avoid relationships, vulnerability, and community. Research shows that shame leads people to hide and self-conceal. People who feel ashamed hide from community and friendship. They avoid vulnerability and never show their true selves with the world. You know, and, you know, how fitting is that? You know, because when you're in active addiction, what do? You hide from everyone except for those that, you know, you're buying from or using from or using with, or, you know, whatever the case might be. For me, you know, I was an alcoholic, and I didn't go out in public, man. I went to work, and I would go to the liquor store, and then I'd go to the grocery store. And then that was it. I'd go home and drink, and that was it. And that's where I drank. Okay. Number 2, people who live with shame are prone to suppressing their emotions. Shame is associated with suppression of emotions, particularly in women, but men too. Men, I can't say particularly women, because men are the world's worst for suppressing emotions. People who feel ashamed of who they are, or ashamed of something that happened to them, often keep their thoughts and feelings wrapped up inside. All right, number 3, people who live with shame often feel worthless, depressed, and anxious. Shame can be a contributing factor in depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. People who are constantly ashamed live out a difficult emotional and mental battle each and every day. All right, so if you're living with shame and you're in recovery, man, you got to work on this, because it's going to derail you. I mean, it really is. You've got to work out why you're feeling this shame. Are you feeling this shame because of how you messed your family up, not being there for your family, not providing for your family, or, you know, whatever the case might be? Well, yes, man, that's learn from that lesson. That's a lesson. You're still alive. Okay, now it's time to make some better choices, but you got to get over that shame. You know, we're going to go over that here in just a minute. All right, number 4, people who live with shame are less likely to take healthy risks. One way that shame has been conceptualized is as a defense against being devalued by others. I've watched Harry Potter so much, every time I read that line, I hear a defense against the dark arts teacher. All right, so let me go back. A defense against being devalued by others. Shame keeps people from making decisions that would lead others to devalue them. Sometimes this leads to avoiding healthy risks. People who deal with shame sometimes only make decisions about jobs, relationships, and school that they feel certain will end well. So in other words, you're not risking anything. You're going to settle for something less because you know how it will end, as opposed to taking a healthy risk and going the next level up, leveling up. If you take a video game, and you're up to say the 5th level, and you're really good at it, are you just going to keep playing the 5th level over because when you hit level 6 that you're going to lose a few times until you get it right? Well, life's the same way. I mean, you got to take some healthy risks. You're going to level up. Go ahead and do it. Yes, you're going to lose a few times. You're going to fail sometimes, and that's okay. You're going to be disappointed sometimes, and that's okay. That's the process of learning. And then once you learn those things, then you can win. So it's just like that. All right, number 5. People who live with shame are more likely to relapse back into problem behaviors. So there you go. That's it. This is big time research. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent by a bunch of different universities on the effects of shame and our mental health, shame and addiction, shame and recovery. So I just want you to get that. So now we know the effects of shame. It's not the same for every single person, but the effects of shame in your life, what it's causing you to hide from, what it's causing you not to do, what it may be causing you to do or to go back to doing. So now we got to get the 5 ways out, okay? Use them one, use them all, it doesn't matter. Number 1, seek out relationships and commit to vulnerability. Here's the key part: with safe people. Do everything in your power to find community. Shame begins to disappear when it's shared in a safe place. So this is like group therapy. And if you've been to rehab, you had to be a part of group therapy. And for me, I went to an all men's center. So we had group therapy every single night. And that's how a lot of great stuff came through that, because, we're all tough guys. We're all just being guys, talking. But as soon as one person would open up and be really vulnerable, it was a domino effect. And everybody in the room would start sharing stuff that they would not share outside of that group. There's no way they'd even think about talking about it. But yet they would. And it would talk about how it affected them, and how it drove them to their drug abuse, whatever their drug of choice was. It didn't, doesn't matter. So, and that's something that you need to do. And you need to seek out, like if you're a man, seek out a men's group. If you're a woman, seek out a woman's group. Because if you had put a woman in that men's group, even leading the men's group, then I'm just telling you, the majority of those guys wouldn't have shared what they shared. I mean, I know I wouldn't have. Just trying to be a tough guy, and then you got to be tough, Can't let it bother us. We just got to keep moving forward, right? And that's not real healthy. It's healthy to an extent, but not real healthy. You got to deal with some stuff in your life, brother. All right. Number 2, move out of your head and into the open. Don't keep everything inside. Put your shame out into the world. Write about the shame. Share your story of shame. Create artwork that represents your shame. Shame finds healing when it's taken outside of ourselves and placed into the world in some way. So make sure you do that. Make sure you're sharing your story. And a lot of times you need to find somebody to give to. Find somebody to help, in other words. And sometimes you can share your story with them. It's going to help you by sharing your story and healing. And then it's going to help them because you've shared with them, and now they realize they're not the only one that felt like that. All right, number 3, develop self-compassion. And this is a big one. You got to do this one. Consider what you would say to a friend who is feeling the same things you feel. Begin to respond to yourself with love and care and concern, just as you would respond to others with love and care and concern. This is something that I had a hard time with myself, was developing self-compassion. Man, I used to cuss myself horribly. And it came from a place of pain. It came from a place of shame. It came from a place of, just being outraged with myself. And how I let all of this just totally destroy my family. And how I let it destroy my relationships. And things of that nature. And this was the one that I had to learn, was how to talk to myself in a loving way, and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, Sean, you messed up. Everybody messes up. Just make some better choices. You got better choices that you can make. This ain't the end. You're still alive. You can work it out. So, and that's one thing you've got to do. And when it comes to developing self-compassion, you might be such outraged at yourself, you might hate yourself so bad that this is not something you can do alone. That's something that you're in this dark forest of emotions right now, and the only way that you're going to get out of there is if you let a counselor come in and lead you back out. And I'm just telling you, that is their job. They are professionals at going in there and grabbing you by the arm and leading you back out to where you can see the light of day again. So look them up. Don't look down on them. Don't think it's a shameful thing because you got to go to a counselor. Bullcrap. That's a great thing. All right. Number 4, take one small risk. Attempt something that might end in failure. Do something that is difficult. You'll either succeed and find hope that you can do more than you thought, or you might fail and realize that failure isn't the end of the world. Either way, you begin to find healing for your shame. I did this one here recently. I've been taking one small risk at a time. And one of the small risks I took, it just didn't work out. It was disappointing. It was, it was disappointing that it didn't work. I had a lot of hopes pinned on it. And it didn't work out. And it is disappointing, but you know what? Ain't the end of the world. I'm just got to move on and just move on from there. I don't want to go into what it was, but, it did. It hurt. I had a lot of hopes pinned on it, and I had a lot of prayers pinned on it. I had a lot of time invested in prayer and on it. Hit a buddy of mine up the other night. I said, man, when do I stop praying for this? And it was just, but it's okay. It didn't work out, but it's not the end of the world. Man, I'm still alive, and I've still got people that love me. And I love them, so it's all good. So do that. Take a small risk. Try starting a small business. Try starting a way to make some money on the side. Just a little side job. Whatever it might be. Just something to make, $50, $60 a week extra, apart from your regular job. And start it. See how it goes. All right, number 5, believe that healing is possible. Make one good decision in the right direction and see how you feel. Believe that you can choose to make good choices over and over again until your life is completely changed. I talked about this in another video. This is a domino effect. Good choices are a domino effect. Bad choices are a domino effect. So, we had this habit when we were in active addiction of making bad choice after bad choice after bad choice. And it just dominoed right there, right? And we all already know it. That's the way it happened. Well, guess what? Good choices are the exact same way, if you will choose those good choices. And a lot of times, man, it's black and white. I mean, you can tell it. You know what it is. You know that a good choice is staying away from your triggers. You know it. And you know that a bad choice is going to be around your triggers. All right? Now, if your trigger's a person, come on. You know they're a trigger. You know to stay away from them. Make a good choice. Stay away from them. You know what places are triggers for you. Stay away from them. You know what things are triggers for you. Stay away from them. And those are continuous good choices that if you'll keep making them, they will have a domino effect just like the bad choices do. Because one good choice will lead into another one, okay? And it will domino effect in your life, and it'll start lifting your life back up. So let me find here. I'm going to read you one more scripture, and then I'll close out. Matthew 11:28 through 30. Come to me. This is Jesus. This is Jesus talking to us. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Are you soul tired? Well, take Jesus on you. I mean, come on. You've already gave your life to Christ. You know you have. Believe his words. He loves you. He wants you. He's there for you. So let him lead the way. You know, if you got to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Then ask yourself that, and then actually do it. Don't do just the opposite. Do what Jesus would do. Hey, this is Sean. This hope and encouragement. You are loved. You're valuable. And you are blessed. And I will see you on the next video.